So you have linked up with Marine Megafauna Foundation. How did that come about?
So Andrea Marshall is one of the founders of the Marine Megafauna Foundation. She's a leading manta expert around the world. She's the one who split the manta genus into two species about 10 years ago. We had actually been in touch back in grad school when I wanted to do this for a project. And she was very, very supportive and encouraging. But since it didn't work out, we lost touch for a little bit. But when I decided to start looking into the project again back in 2016, I contacted her and let her know that I was doing it. And she gave me some advice and was really excited by what we were finding. Because there is another research project on mantas in Florida up north, with the Georgia Aquarium is studying a seasonal aggregation there. But the problem with the northern project is you can't get in the water and do any in-water research because of the turbidity. So she was really excited to learn that there was a place in Florida where you could actually get in the water with the mantas and learn about the individuals, which is a typical data collection method for studying these animals. Last year, we decided to collaborate on this project together since she is an expert and is a huge help to me all the time.
That's awesome. Explain, why do you have to get in the water? Why is that such a big part of the process?
Yeah, so doing these kinds of studies where you want to learn about the life history of these animals, it can be really helpful to know, to be able to identify individuals. That's why with a lot of turtle studies I used to do before, you're actually putting tags in the turtle. So you can know if this turtle is returning to nest, how many times it has nested in a season, how many eggs it laid in a season, and how many years it takes off between nesting. You know, if you don't know who the individual is, you can't know that information. And so with manta rays, you don't have to put a tag on them to do that because they kind of have a natural tag, so to speak, which is the spot patterns on their belly are unique to each individual manta, kind of like a human fingerprint. And so if you get in the water and get a photo of the belly of a manta ray, then you can identify that individual. And then based on that, you can learn about how long they're spending in an area. If we see that manta over and over again, we know that it's residing in that area for a certain amount of time. If that manta is resighted somewhere else, you can learn about the migration patterns of these individuals or populations just by with the photo of their bellies.
That's pretty awesome. How often do you re-sight them elsewhere?
So far, none of our mantas has been resighted outside of Florida.
Okay.
We've had some people within Florida resight the mantas I'm studying. And this could be for a number of reasons. It could be maybe they're not venturing outside of Florida, or maybe they're venturing to places where people aren't in the water as much. You know, if they're maybe going up the eastern seaboard of the United States where the in-water visibility isn't as good and there aren't as many divers, you know, they could very easily be missed. They could be going, you know, out into really deep water off our coast, and obviously they wouldn't be seen there. So those are all the questions that I would like to answer eventually. But MMF has a global online database called Manta Matcher, which you can access at mantamatcher.org. And this is a platform where divers can actually become citizen scientists. And if they see a manta ray underwater and get a photo or a video of its belly, then they can upload that. And that photo will go to researchers so we can add those individuals to our databases. And around the world, that has been really, really helpful with manta research, especially in some places like Asia and Africa. They've gotten a lot of data that way. And currently, right now, I'm trying to educate more people here in Florida and maybe in areas around the Caribbean as well about that, because I think a lot of people just don't know about it. So maybe they see a manta and take a picture, but aren't reporting it to anybody.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I mean, just knowing you, I knew about the individual spots thing, but I just learned last week about the Manta Matcher, so that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I've been trying to really spread it around to the dive shops, but since dive shops very rarely, they don't see manta rays that much here, at least on the dive sites. It's a fairly rare occurrence. But even then, I've still had a dive shop this year, or the end of last year, report one of our mantas that they saw on a local rec.
Very cool.
So it's about spreading the word.
Absolutely. So where else are mantas located in the world?
Manta rays are found circumglobally. There's 2 species of manta ray. The reef manta, Manta alfredi, tends to be located in more tropical areas and more in Asia and off the coast of Eastern Africa. The giant manta ray, Manta barostris, can go up into more temperate waters or cooler waters. Is located more in the Americas. It's also sympatric with the reef mantas in some places in Asia and Africa, which is how Andrea Marshall figured out that there were 2 species, because she just happened to study mantas in one of the few places where both of these species can be seen at the same time, which is really interesting. And what we think right now is that there's a possible 3rd species that would be endemic, which means that it'd be only found in the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean. So those would be the mantas that I would be studying. But we're still researching that.
Interesting. So between the 2 species, is it just size that's the difference? How did you determine between the species, and then how would you determine the 3rd species?
So the differences between the 2 species are, one, the giant manta, or the oceanic manta, as its name suggests, is larger. They can reach sizes of up to 7 meters, or like 22, 23 feet. The reef manta is smaller, but it's still big. They can reach sizes of up to like 5 meters. And there's some differences in their dorsal and ventral colorations, the distribution of their spots on their bellies, and the presence or absence of a caudal spine, which is basically like a little remnant spine on their tail. So those are the main attributes you can use to visually see the differences between the 2 species. And there's some other stuff you could look at, but you would need a microscope to look at some of the skin and teeth differences.